And I realized I needed to figure out the formula of success. I just could not maintain what I was doing. And at this time, I started working with several millionaires. But what I found is that the foundation, which is your inner game, it includes your getting in the driver's seat of your life. This allows you to focus. And basically what you're doing is you're getting out of that limbic primal brain that's emotionally driven, and you're getting into the prefrontal cortex where you can actually think logically and rationally. You've got to decide what you want to achieve. You've got to get really clear. And then you've got to set goals so you can achieve them. Hi, my name is Annette Bau, your host of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. I'm a certified financial planner and founder of the Millionaire Insider. For over 30 years, I have been advising and researching the top 1% of millionaires, and I am passionately obsessed with money, mindset, and the intersection of self-worth and net worth, and how the two connect and allow us to live fulfilled and wealthy lives on our terms. I'm a Midwestern girl who had a dream, began investing $25 a month 35 years ago, and today have a multi-million-dollar net worth. I teach the tried and true that only someone with over 3 decades of experience advising millionaires would know. This podcast is different, about much more than money. We talk about mindset, success, money blocks, worth barometer, and all aspects of money and topics from practical manifestation, along with real-world how-to and everything in between, with the goal of making your journey easier and more fun. Think of this as coffee, actually matcha tea, learning real-world common sense money and life advice from a BFF that you can start applying today. If you want to create a financially free life you love, you are in the right place, my friend. This is the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. Well, it seems obvious that wealthy people operate from a different formula than others. One of the most fascinating insights I've learned in my 30 plus years of advising millionaires is how simple the formula they use is. And while the formulas among wealthy clients can differ in certain aspects, the fundamentals of those with amazing lives are the same. So whether your goal is to create a financially free life you love or maintain it, today you're going to learn everything you need to know to make it a reality. For today's show notes and resources, go to themillionaireinsider.com/1. For all show notes, go to themillionaireinsider.com/podcast. The information we provide is not intended to replace any investment, financial, tax, or any other advice. Before beginning, please consult with your own team of advisors and review your situation. You agree to hold millionaireseries.com, Annette Bau, and all affiliates harmless for information contained in these trainings. All international copyrights are reserved. So if you would like to follow along and start creating your own financial freedom formula, you can go to millionaireininsider.com/FFG and download our financial freedom formula guide. But this guide is going to walk you through what we're doing today so that by the time you get done, you'll have your own formula that you can start applying. So again, themillionaireininsider.com/FFG. If you're like me, you like to be able to take notes and you like to be able to have something you can start executing on immediately. So again, themillionaireininsider.com/FFG. So let's dive into the Millionaire Insider's financial freedom formula. Step 1, you've got to create a solid foundation. So I've been doing this for over 30 years, meaning advising millionaires. The first few years of my career, I really struggled. And the main reason was because I had no foundation. And I believe that the secret was just activity, work, work, work. In fact, 30 years ago, you could make a great living just working your butt off, or so I thought. But then one of my mentors had a massive heart attack. Another one got divorced because of the stress of the business. There was no work-life balance. And I realized I needed to figure out the formula of success. I just could not maintain what I was doing. And at this time, I started working with several millionaires. But what I found is that the foundation, which is your inner game, it includes your getting in the driver's seat of your life. This allows you to focus. And basically what you're doing is you're getting out of that limbic primal brain that's emotionally driven, and you're getting into the prefrontal cortex where you can actually think logically and rationally. You've got to decide what you want to achieve. You've got to get really clear. And then you've got to set goals so you can achieve them. And then the fourth thing you got to do is elevate your worth barometer. This is your belief in your self-esteem. You can go to episode 3, themillionaireinsider.com/3 and learn more about the worth barometer. But your worth barometer, we measure it on a grid, and it is a combination of your belief in self-esteem, and it basically dictates your level of success and specifically how successful you'll be from having both a fulfilled life and a wealthy life. The first thing you got to do is you got to master focus. So what's so fascinating about focus that I learned from working with millionaires? When I first started, I literally was a master at multitasking. And I can actually remember thinking, if I could just teach my clients how to multitask, they wouldn't be multi-millionaires. They'd be billionaires. And oh my gosh, I was so wrong. Instead, what I learned from them is the power of single tasking, laser focus, looking at what was at hand and laser focusing on that. But I was a professional multitasker. I didn't want to give it up. In fact, I was probably the prize winner of doing 2 or 3 or 4 things at one time. And it wasn't until I started researching and realizing that our brain can only do one thing. So even if you're trying to do 2 things, you're really only doing one thing. Now, I realize when you're a busy parent, sometimes it's impossible not to be dealing with things, but just understand that your brain can only focus on one thing at a time. And so by laser focusing and doing one thing at a time, you're going to find that you're going to get so much more done. But I literally committed to rewiring my brain, and in that process learned that it takes between 18 and 254 days to rewire a neural pathway, which is basically a habit, on average about 66 days. So if you are a multitasker like I was, just give yourself a couple months. And if you get off track like we all do, don't beat yourself up. We're doing the best we can do, but just know that as you get better at single tasking, you're going to get so much done. It's amazing. And not only get it done quicker and with more accuracy. They did a really interesting study on college students, and what they wanted to know was, does single tasking really work? And so they took students that were already A students, meaning they already got really good grades. And what they did is they had one group study without any distractions. So they were single laser focused, and they had the other group studying with the TV on or around friends or with music on. And they found that the group that was laser focused, meaning just studying, not with any other distractions, was able to study in 1/3 of the time than those who had distractions. Can you imagine saving 2/3 of your time, meaning being able to get your work done in 1/3 of an hour as compared to 2/3 of an hour, basically a 50% savings of time. I mean, that to me is fascinating. I'll hear people say, well, I can't concentrate unless I have music going on in the background. And I'm thinking, oh, so it's taking you basically 2/3 more time to get it done. So instead of a task taking 20 minutes to get done, it's taking 40 minutes to get done. I mean, multiply that over a couple of days or even a month or a year. I mean, it's unbelievable. You would have time to do so many things. So I just want you to be aware of that. You got to slow down your mind and your thinking. 2 of the best strategies to do this are silent meditation and focused breathing. I don't recommend you start with silent meditation unless you've been meditating. I mean, I've been meditating for a long time, and silent meditation is a challenge. Focused breathing is a much easier first step. But basically what you want to do is put your feet flat on the ground and sit in a chair so that your spine is erect. If you feel nervous, put the palms of your hand on the top of your thighs, right above your knees. If you're feeling really motivated and inspired, face them up to the heavens. Breathe in your nose to the count of 8. Hold it for 8. And then release to the count of 16. Now, if you can't do that, you just got to practice your breathing. But you can do a 4 in, hold for 4, and then release for 8, but all through your nose. So again, into the count of 8. Hold it for 8. And then release for 16. One of the things that both meditation and focused breathing do is increases the gray mass in your brain that controls your ability to focus as well as your fear center. So it's really, really important, and it will be very helpful for you. The more you can start learning how to focus, which also includes getting enough sleep, you're going to be amazed. You're going to be thinking much more clearly. You're going to be much clearer on what you want, and results are going to follow. You've got to decide what you want and how much money you need. You know, one of the most fascinating things I've seen throughout my career, and, you have to understand I've always been in kind of research mode because I'm so fascinated by all of this, is that most people know what they don't want, but when you ask them what they do want, the response oftentimes is, that's a really good question. But you got to know that. And then you also have to know, how much money do you need? Wants as well as needs. In episode 2, themillionaireinsider.com/2, we're going to dive into spending plans and budget, your magical budget. I encourage you to listen to that because that'll get you really clear on the need as far as money. And what's so fascinating is that people think, oh, people with money don't have budgets or spending plan. That is so not true. Rich people don't have budgets or spending plan, but wealthy people, oh, they have some of the best ones I've ever seen. And my magical budget, which I'll share with you in episode 2, is literally something I have tested in the trenches for over 20 some years with wealthy people and not wealthy people, and it works across the board. So you're going to love that resource. You got to set your goals. So a recent study showed that people who set goals January 1st, that by the 19th of the month, 92% of them had given up on their goal. That's just crazy. So how do you set goals and make them stick? The first thing you got to do is you got to align your conscious mind, your prefrontal cortex, with your subconscious mind, your limbic brain, your primal brain. You got to write out your goals in I am or I active verb statements. And you got to understand that your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and what you imagine. So you've got to make sure that in your mind's eye, you can see what you want. You're going to learn more about achieving goals in episode 11, themillionaireinsider.com/11. But you've got to make sure that you're setting goals to achieve them. You got to elevate your worth barometer. So in my 30 plus years of research, the biggest determinant of success, specifically a fulfilled life you love, is the worth barometer. It's measured by a grid. Above the grid is peace, joy, fulfillment, energy. You're positive, you're optimistic. Below the grid is fear, worry, anxiety, anger. And we're never always above the grid or below the grid, but what you want to do is you just want to work on spending more time above the grid. And I will say this much. I grew up with about a 20% above the grid, 80% below. And now I'm about an 80% above, 20% below. And it's amazing. I don't wake up. I used to wake up all the time with anxiety and stress and just anticipation. I don't do that. And one of the things I will say, and I think with experience and age, this happens. But, I used to measure things that happen in my life as, oh, that's good or that's bad. Because, we all know what we want to happen and what actually happens. I've come to learn that everything that happens in our life is completely planned. It's oh, thanks for that happening. Even if it's somebody that doesn't do work with you, it's not supposed to. And I've just come to really trust. And I think the more you can trust, the easier it is to let go of things that normally would worry you or cause you anxiety. Now, worrying about our kids, that's a hard one. But, I think the more we can be above the grid, the better. 99% of people with amazing lives and millionaires with amazing lives focus daily on elevating their worth barometer. A great strategy to elevate your worth barometer is focused breathing, silent meditation, and then secondary strategies, yoga, positive prayer, hiking, chants. And one of the best affirmative statements I have found in my entire life is I am enough. At the core level, most people's problem is they don't feel they're enough. And then everywhere you go, you're not enough. You're either too young or you're too old. You're either too thin or you're too fat. Nothing you do is enough. What we've got to do is we've got to understand that even with our imperfections, we are enough. And I am enough is one of the most powerful affirmative statements you can make. Tips for creating a solid foundation. You got to get adequate sleep. 7 7.5 to 8.5 hours each night. Slow down, get quiet, and recharge your mind so you can focus. I encourage you to do that focused breathing exercise first thing in the morning and last thing in the evening. Got to eat a clean diet. This includes non-starchy veggies, lean protein, and healthy fat. Now, I encourage you to create an eating protocol. My protocol, which I'll dive into in a later episode, but I basically eat dinner between 5 and 6, and then I eat again between 10 and 11. And I used to snack during the day, and I have blood sugar issues. And what I find is that my blood sugar is so much better when I eat that protocol. So again, you got to figure out what works for you. But this bit that you have to eat like 3 full meals and then 2 snacks is completely wrong. And there's been so much research on the power of intermittent fasting. I encourage you to look into that. Always check with a qualified healthcare provider, but I just know that I feel better than I've felt, and I weigh my ideal weight. That's the power of it. All right, you got to exercise your mind and your body, and I encourage you to do both. And yoga is a great thing to exercise your mind. And then 5, identify and improve triggers, responses, and backtracks. Triggers are issues that bring us below the grid. It could be somebody cutting you off in traffic. It could be somebody looking at you incorrectly. It could be whatever it may be. But what we got to get clear on is what triggers us and be aware of it, and then how to get back on track. Now, the goal is always to get above the grid as quickly as possible. But one of the things I encourage you to do is when something happens that triggers you, instead of really quickly just trying to get above the grid, just sit in that discomfort for a little bit, whether it's stress, anger, fear, and let your limbic brain, your primal brain, know that you're going to be okay. No tiger's out there to get you. See, what happens, and even I've changed my view on this, is I used to be like, okay, you just want to quickly get above the grid. You don't. You want to be like, okay, right now I'm feeling really angry, say at your spouse, right? That's probably the easiest person to be angry with. You know, they said or did something or didn't do something, and you're like, oh, I'm really mad. And it's like you sit there and you're like, okay, let's just think about this. All right, what am I mad about, or what am I angry about, or why do I feel anxiety or overwhelm? And you're like, okay, nothing's really happening. All right, maybe I feel a little bit edgy, or I'm perspiring a little bit, or I'm a little bit nervous. And what you'll find is it just kind of goes down. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I dealt with that. That's going to help train your brain that you're going to be okay. You want to reduce stress. And one of the most important things of reducing stress is making sure you have personal power hours, which we'll get into in a future episode. But a power hour is 50 to 70 minutes of laser focus, followed by an 8 to 10 minute power break. And you got to make sure you're doing those personal power hours. Early in my career, I didn't do any because I thought, oh, I'll get to that stuff once I'm successful. I didn't realize how critical it is. And the reason I live 80% above the grid is because power hours, specifically personal ones, are a top priority. And then last, but most certainly not least, increase your reserves. For example, if you need $3,000 a month for expenses, have $3,300 a month. If you need a $10,000 emergency reserve, have an $11,000 emergency reserve. If you need 7 hours of sleep a night, get 7.5. Just have some extra. It is so powerful to have reserves, and so many people don't. We're so depleted because we're so busy doing something, right? Most people don't have enough reserves, and it shows up in their life, meaning they're not getting their results because they're so lacking in the reserve area. All right, step 2, they develop a winning financial strategy. So one of the things that you're going to work on when you're developing your financial strategy, the first thing is your mindset. You've got to master your mindset. What are you thinking about? What are the emotions? You know, you look at the situation that occurs. I call it the steer or setter, but you have a situation, and then you have a thought, and then an emotion, and then you have a action that you take. And oftentimes that action is either above or below the grid, and then you have a result. Now, the setter is just where the emotion comes before thought. If you look at it from a scientific standpoint, the thought always comes before the emotion. But depending how wired you are from a limbic brain, a lot of times you don't realize that. Like I'll say, do you feel something first or do you think it? And a lot of times people say, oh, I feel it. And I know a lot of psychologists will say that. They'll say people that have been through a trauma, they don't think, they feel it. So don't worry. Don't get caught up on the thinking or feeling. Just know that technically you are thinking something to feel it. But the key is to understand what you can shift to be able to get out of it. And one thing you can do is sit in the emotion for a little bit. The other thing you can do is think something differently. So just be aware of that. You got to set goals to achieve them. You got to focus on your personal and business power hours and then on power breaks to rejuvenate. All right. How much money do you need and from what sources? How much money do you need monthly? And how much money do you want monthly? Those are so critical. And in the budget, which you can get in episode 2 at themillionaireinsider.com/2, or you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/AMB, you can also access the budget, our magical budget. But where is it going to come from? Is it going to come from earned income, interest, dividends, passive income, residual income? Millionaires know this. You need to also. All right. And then step 3, they consistently execute. What you want to do is create a peak performance schedule so that you know, like, what is required? What do you need to achieve your goals? So when you start tracking your activity, it's a lot easier to see where you are falling short, what's working and what's not, as compared to just winging it. The other thing they do is they consistently execute on the activities they need to complete to achieve their goal. So examples may include creating their master budget, saving 10 to 50% of their income. A lot of you could not imagine saving 50% of your income, right? Figure out how to do it. That's how you become wealthy. I want to talk about that for a minute. Most people are so much more interested in looking like they have money. Like, I would rather look like I don't have money and have money in the bank. And I've gotten better. I mean, as I've gotten older now, I drive a nice car. I've driven a nice car for a while, and we're building a mansion. I don't really want a mansion, but I want the views of a mansion. So anyway, I look at that and I think, okay, I do things now that I would have never done when I was younger. But the real key is when you have money in the bank, it gives you a sense of security that it's undescribable. So I encourage you, focus, get debt-free. I mean, I've been debt-free now for almost 20 years, and it is one of the best decisions I've ever made. Ideally, you're maximizing your retirement plans along with your personal plans. You want to have that balance. You don't have all your money in retirement plans. So then when you get to retirement, you're forced to take a lot of money out and pay a higher amount in income tax. You want to reduce your expenses. You know, some people have such high expenses, especially rich people, because they spend so much. I encourage you to really watch your expenses. And, you know, some people will tell you, oh, you know, don't worry about buying the $5 latte. And I do agree with that. But what I also want you to understand is whatever you say yes to, you're saying no to something else. So I want you to think about it. One of our friends were like, well, we just get a couple of lattes every day. And I'm like, well, like, how much are you spending? And it was like $7 a latte times 4. They would go to a coffee shop 4 times a day. We calculated we were spending like $9,000 a year. Like, wow, that does add up. I was on TV. So for 1 year, I was a spokesperson for the local financial planning association. And I was hired to go in and look at people that were having financial difficulty. And they're like, oh, no, we don't ever buy coffee. But I go, well, what's this $1 charge here? Oh, I go to Circle K and I buy a big Slurpee. Well, those are like $1 each. She's buying 4 a day. I'm like, that's 4 a day. Multiply that by 30. That's 120. Multiply it by a yearly. What is it, like 1440? I mean, I don't know the exact number, but somewhere around, $1,500 a year. I'm like, okay, that could go towards other things. But see, people think little amounts don't matter. It's not that a Starbucks is going to break you. The problem is that it's the Starbucks and it's the purse and it's the boots and it's the trip. That's the problem. And so what I want you to work on, and as we continue going through this, what you're going to be working on is just more discipline. Because I, to this day, think going to Starbucks is a big deal. And I'm sure some people would look at me and judge me, go, oh my gosh, you're cheap or whatever. I'm not cheap at all. I'm just very aware of my money. I know what it's like not to have money. And I feel like I want to be the best steward of the money that I have earned and I've been given, and however you want to look at it. But I'm just really aware of money. And I also think that when you're wealthy, and we'll dive into this in the episode of Rich versus Wealthy, which is coming up, is that when you're wealthy, you don't live beyond your means. In fact, you live way below your means. And so once we hit our net worth goal in 2021, which was a crazy net worth goal, and I still am actually a little bit shocked that we hit that. But what I realized is like nothing in our life changed, absolutely nothing. And I felt a little bit more secure about the house, so that changed, but nothing else really, because what I realized was nothing really has changed in how we spend money. We still look at things, we still watch our money, we pay attention, drives our kids crazy. We have bought a few toys for different properties, but for the most part, we really watch our money. The other thing they do is look at how to create additional sources of revenue, maybe selling their expertise, affiliate marketing, or network marketing. There are a lot of options of things you can do. And when it comes to millionaires, a lot of them, vast majority, are entrepreneurs. And so what they'll look at is different lines of income in their business, oftentimes affiliate marketing or joint venture options. So again, just be aware of that. All right, tips. You got to commit to execute regardless of how you feel. So I want you to get really clear on this because feelings are important. How you feel is important. But what I want you to do is get clear on how you will feel once you achieve your goal. So let's just say you want to ultimately accumulate $1 million. And if it's not $1 million, I don't really care the number. What I care is that you get clear on what that is. So if it's 5 million, fine. If it's 10 million, fine. If it's 500,000, fine. But whatever it is, get clear on it. And then identify how you are going to feel when you accumulate that. And you can go on the vacation you want. You can get the healthcare you need. You can help your grandchild or child that's in college. Then what I want you to get clear on when I say I don't want you to get derailed on how you feel, I'm talking about like right at this moment. Because see, where most people make a huge mistake is they get clear on what they want, they know how they're going to feel, but then it's like, oh, I don't feel like it right now. If you allow your limbic brain to determine the action you take on how you feel right at this moment, it's very difficult to achieve your goal. So you got to get really clear on that. When you miss your goal, instead of beating yourself up, just reassess, make adjustments, and then execute. So many people get caught up on beating themselves up. Like, I have a perfectionist tendency, and it's just so annoying. We don't need to get an A on everything. Like actually in school, I was actually pretty good. I always wanted to get the lowest possible grade. So when I was in college, they didn't have the system they do now where they have the A plus, A, and A minus. If you got an A minus, it was the same as an A plus. So I'm like, okay, if I'm going to get an A in this class, I want it to be an A minus or a B. And it's just crazy because you think like, how funny is that? But then I get into my career and it's like, everything's got to be perfect because as a financial planner, it really does. But again, we got to just be clear on what we want. If we get off course, reassess, make adjustments, and then get going. And then last but not least, find an accountability partner. Finding somebody that you can go through the process with is so powerful and so important. So there you have it. So we dove into the 3 steps. The first one is you've got to create a solid foundation with your mindset, your worth barometer, your vision, your goals. And then you've got to develop a winning financial strategy, which includes, how much money you need and what income sources. And then you've got to consistently execute regardless of how you feel. So if you commit that you're going to do 5 things each day, let's say you're already wealthy and you just want to stay wealthy. All right. Part of that's going to be monitoring what you're doing. The other part is really determining what you can spend. Let's say you're not there. Then you're going to be getting really clear on what you can afford and how you're going to make more money. So there you have it, my friends. It's not that difficult, right? Thank you so much for joining me for the Millionaire Insider Financial Freedom Formula. Wasn't that great? It's super simple, right? All you have to do is start with your foundation, which is your inner game, your strategy, which is your game plan, and then your execution, which is your outer game. And if you master that, you can apply that to literally anything, whether it's your money, whether it's your business, whether it's your life. And the results you get are going to be amazing. Congratulations on taking another step to create a financially free life you love. If you're not sure about your financial future or that it's in order, or you are ready to stop worrying about money or possibly the fear of becoming a bag lady, ending up broke in retirement, or you simply are ready to know your financial house is in order so that you can have a bright financial future, please go to themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. And that doesn't stand for non-sufficient funds. It stands for Next Step Finance. It's the next best step of what you need to do so you can avoid an NSF notice in your future. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. The number of women who were not broke or poor while working or married is staggering. The entire mission of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast is to ensure you have the information for you, your family, your friends, anyone who's willing to listen to it and apply it so that you can create a financially free life you love. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. If you love the content of this podcast, please follow and subscribe to our channel so you get notified of episodes, and also give us a 5-star review and share a comment. We really appreciate it. Until our next episode, take one action that will help you create a financially free life you love. I'm Annette Bau, your host. All international copyrights are reserved. Bye for now.